Hey everybody, welcome to the Chris and Mike channel. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at all of the possible places that you could retire in the world and how to figure out which one is right for you, right after this. You liking this one, Chris?
Yeah, best one I've ever had.
Here's Chris having some lemonades.
Swallow.
Every year, International Living looks at the top places to retire in the world. What we're looking at right now is the 2023 Global Retirement Index. And this will show us in detail the criteria and the ratings for each of the criteria for all the countries. Are we going to stop here? No way. We're going to dive deep and figure out what is the right place for you. So the first thing you should do is create your own spreadsheet like I did here. And I picked the top 6 countries: Portugal, Mexico, Panama, Ecuador, Costa Rica, and Spain. And I also, on the left-hand side, you can see that I put all the criteria: housing, visa benefits, cost of living, affinity rating, development, government, climate, and healthcare. So the international living system is not perfect, but it's a great place to start. So just some information. The higher numbers are better here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and weight how important each criteria is. What international living does is weight all of these items equally. And for some of us, or all of us actually, we would never weight all these equally. Some things are more important, and that's an individual decision. For example, I have weighted visa, how easy it is to get your visa and benefits, very, very low, a 2 out of 10, versus housing costs as a 10 out of 10. And the reason I did that is with visa and benefits, that's just a one-time or two-time process, depending on the country that you go through, and then it's done. So what we're doing is customizing their process to exactly match what your criteria would be. So the result would be something specific for you as opposed to something's generalized for the overall public. So as I mentioned, we weight how important each criteria is, and this is actually a good exercise to go through anyway for you and your partner to discuss some of these things and find out where the differences are right up front, as opposed to after you move to the country and you realize one person likes this area and the other person likes another area or another country better. The other thing you can do is change the rating as well from the initial rating that they gave it. I didn't do that too much. I did it, I think, once or twice. For example, under Ecuador and healthcare, it was lower than the 84. I bumped it up, and the reason I did that is Chris and I are using private healthcare in Ecuador, and it's much better than the public healthcare. So I bumped that up a little bit. Also, climate is something you may want to judge differently for each country. Good climate is in the eyes of the beholder. All of us are looking at different things. People from Arizona or Texas might want to get away from the sun and the heat and look at some place that has a more moderate temperature. Those of us coming from 3 feet of snow and blizzards from Canada may want something a little warmer in our retirement. The other thing you can do is add your own criteria that they've left out. For example, there's 3 criteria that I've added. One is the whole vibe and how welcoming the people are. And this does change from country to country and over time as well. And crime rate, that's something that obviously makes the headlines, probably more than it should, but that's something you can look at as well and compare the different countries. The only caution I would give when looking at the crime rate is you really need to go dig deep and look at, well, is it crime against the everyday citizen? Is it gangs against gangs? Because it can throw a lot of the numbers sort of out of whack. The other thing I suggest is when you do narrow it down to one or two countries and you go on some exploratory trips, the most important factor when it comes to crime is how do you feel personally, and that can change from person to person. For example, in Ecuador here, where the crime rate is rising, and I know a lot of people are concerned about it. Chris and I on the coast feel extremely safe and very comfortable, and we have no issue with that. Another one that we added was nature. For us, that was the number one criteria, and it's not even on here. So that's something as well that people could add. And you may have your own. Like one might be, how many hours does it take to get back to your grandchildren? If you plan on traveling back. Another one could be, is it in the same time zone? So that you can have, Zoom calls with your family more readily if that's something that you wanted to do. So basically what you then do is you add all your criteria, you rate them. For example, housing here, 10 out of 10. Visa benefits I put as a 2. Cost of living, I also put a 10 out of 10. Affinity rating is, they just added it this year, and I actually wish that they didn't. It really looks at almost how popular or where people want to move, and I think sometimes that can get you on the wrong track. So I put that down as a 1. Development and government is really about the infrastructure that is available in that country, how developed the government is, how stable the government is, and certainly that's important. I put it up there as a 7.5. The climate, I put as a 10 out of 10. Most of us, or many of us, are leaving because of climate type issues. And of course, healthcare is very important. I put that up as a 8 out of 10. Depending on what your health is like now, that could be a 10 out of 10, or what your age is, that could be a 10 out of 10, or a 4 out of 10 if you're younger and really, quite healthy. So once you put all the numbers in and multiply them by the weighting, you're going to have a grand total at the bottom, and you're going to have a first and second country that might be a good match for you. And this is just a starting point for your exploration of where's the best place to retire. You can start then joining Facebook groups, investigating those countries more, and eventually going to exploratory trips to see what it feels like. Because we can do all the math and all the spreadsheets that we want, but actually, until we actually arrive in the country for an exploratory trip, that's when you'll start to see what it feels like. For Chris and I, when we went to the coast of Ecuador, we knew right away, like this was going to be home. And we had no doubt. And that's one of the reasons why we bought a house as opposed to renting. And we're going to have a video coming up and going through that in much more detail of why we didn't follow the conventional wisdom and rent, and why we bought. So just before we end the video, let's go through a couple of the criteria, which are probably the most important for most people. One is the housing. So housing, this is basically the cost of housing, both for renting and buying. And you can see on these top 6 countries that this has changed over time. Costa Rica especially, really no surprise from Spain and Portugal being in Europe, they're going to be a little more expensive. And remember, the higher the number here, the cheaper the housing would be. Ecuador, which is not always on everyone's retirement map, even though it's made the top 10 for many, many years now, and this year it's number 4, has very, very cheap housing, both on the rental side and on the purchasing side. But a place that used to be cheap was Costa Rica, and of course it is no longer cheap. As more expats have moved into the country, things have gotten a lot more expensive. Also, when we look at cost of living, so outside of housing, that's also a big factor for a lot of people. And you'll see the same kind of trend here, where places like Panama and Costa Rica, which again used to be very, very affordable, are certainly going in the wrong direction there. Mexico, on the other hand, remains quite cheap on cost of living, and actually Portugal is pretty good on the cost of living side as well. So thanks for watching this video. I hope this gives you a little bit of a criteria that you can go through and start some conversations with your partner about where you should be retiring and where it makes sense for what's important to you. And there's no right answer here. It could be something that's not even any of these six, or a place that International Living didn't even put in their top group of countries. It could be a place that you want to go back to, that you lived before, or where family is, and that's the type of criteria that you would put in. But certainly it makes you go through a fairly rigorous process to make sure you're thinking about everything that should be thought of before you retire. Anyway, good luck, and remember, the most important thing is live the life you love. Take care. Till next time.